watching us, don't you worry. They'll be watching us on cameras, they'll be watching us on our phones. They want to know what we're doing. I was listening to the James Corbett report the other day, and he was saying, and I trust James Corbett because he researches everything. He was saying that they had planned lockdown to last till 2030. Now this bit's going to make me cry, because the reason they didn't do that is because of you. The reason they couldn't do that is because the biggest march I was on here in London had 2 million people on it. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong. The BBC said it was 30,000. There were 2 million people marching through London, and it scared the shit out of them. So, anyone who says what we're doing is not working is lying. What we're doing is scaring the hell out of them.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name, for those of you that don't know me, is Kara McCallum. And like so many of you here today, I was a friend of Jeff Wyatt. I'd like to welcome you, and especially those that have travelled a great distance to be here and to stand in Hyde Park on this autumn's day. I know that we have people with us from all over the country, and I think Jeff would be incredibly touched by the fact that so many of you have come along to honour his memory and to pay tribute to him today. I'd like to thank the people that are live streaming this memorial, and would take this opportunity to welcome those who could not attend today in person, but who will be watching online. I would like to extend a particularly warm welcome today to both Lucy, Jeff's daughter, and Sasha, his partner, who are here with us today. When I set about organising this very simple memorial to Jeff, it seemed only right somehow to be here at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, where the freedom movement essentially began, what seems almost like a lifetime ago, and where Jeff had the rather dubious honour of being only the second person in the country to be arrested under the egregious coronavirus regulations 2020. So for Jeff, things in a way have come full circle. It started here, and very sadly, it will end here. As I look around, I see many familiar faces, many people that marched alongside Jeff and his famous huge placards on protest. Many people that stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeff as they were attacked by the police, acting as thuggish agents of the state instead of protectors of the people. I see many people that spoke on the same platform as Jeff in various towns and countries and cities all over England, and many people who were inspired by Jeff to join the freedom movement. The movement itself is a disparate group of people from all walks of life, all ages, all races, all religions, all social classes and political persuasions. We might never have met each other had fate not intervened and brought us together.
Very true.
But we each and every one of us share something that is special and uncommon, and that is the ability to see through the lies and propaganda that we have been bombarded with in these past few years. Equally, we share a love for freedom, truth and justice, and from that stems a burning desire to fight against the absolute evil of the tyranny and techno-fascism that both the Great Reset and the New World Order represent.
Hear, hear.
The bonds that we share are strong and have been forged in a very short time, even if we don't always agree about everything. We have found our tribe, and for those of us that have lost family members and friends because they mistakenly believe we are no more than deranged conspiracy theorists, this coming together of awake people is incredibly important and not to be dismissed by defeatist tropes such as, but nothing has been achieved. If this really was the case and our protests have been for nothing, then why is the government hell-bent into bringing into law the draconian public order bill? We may not have achieved all we would have wanted to, but what we have done at the very least is to have brought like-minded people together and given them a voice. And we have started a great awakening, which can only gain more and more momentum as time goes on. Never forgetting that once people are awake, they cannot go back to sleep. And all it will take for this nightmare to ease is for more people to join us in simply saying, no, no, we will not comply. Jeff was a unifying force, and it would mean a great deal to him that today there are people here representing many different parts of the resistance movement. Our enemies want us divided, of course, for when we are busy fighting each other, we are not coming together as a unified force to fight them, the shadowy people in the background, pulling the strings of the puppets in our government, and conspiring to control us in every conceivable way, using false narratives such as COVID-19, man-made climate change and Ukraine, whilst pretending all the while that what is being done is really for our benefit and that of the community as a whole. The excuse of every tyrant that has ever lived. Jeff and I talked about how a life enslaved in the totalitarian dystopia the so-called elites have planned for us is a life simply not worth living, and that come what may, we would fight to the end on the basis that we would rather, both literally and metaphorically, die on our feet rather than live on our knees. Jeff led by example in this regard. He was an absolute warrior, a fearless, proud Englishman, a true patriot who loved his country and hated what was happening to it. Jeff was both a natural leader and an eloquent speaker. He was friendly, kind, and made time for everybody he met. He had courage in spades, an indomitable spirit, fortitude, and most of all, passion. Before he entered politics, Jeff had been a very successful international racing driver and a businessman, and he could have easily retreated these past few tumultuous years to enjoy a quiet, very comfortable life with Sasha, living in the countryside, walking his dogs, and taking his beloved classic cars to rallies and shows. But instead, he chose to devote a lot of time to being out in the streets with us. Jeff was always in his element at protests and rallies, and especially when he had a mic in his hand and was haranguing the powers that be, or for that matter any unfortunate policeman that happened to stray into his path when he was speaking. History will undoubtedly record that despite being in turn ridiculed, vilified and discriminated against, it is we who have right on our side. And history will show the large part that Jeff played in the freedom movement in England. Jeff's very sudden, untimely, and I believe entirely preventable death at the hands of the NHS has devastated many of us on a personal level. And his death will also leave a huge void in the movement as a whole. Jeff was very much a force of nature, certainly never short of an opinion or two, and had so much more life to live, and so much more to do. And the fact that his time with us was cut so very short is indeed a tragedy. But I believe that Jeff's spirit will live on in the movement. Yes! Yeah. And I, for one, will miss him more than I can say. In the short time we knew each other, Jeff became like a big brother to me. We teased each other mercilessly. We didn't agree on everything, but we always had each other's backs. I will never forget his friendship and support, or the role he played in fighting for freedom and against tyranny. Surely the best tribute we can ever make to Jeff is to vow to continue the fight in his honour and to push on. And we push on regardless of how battle-weary so many of us are. It is no exaggeration to say that the struggle we face is one of truly epic proportions. The stakes could not be higher, because we are fighting possibly the greatest battle of all against the forces of evil and darkness for the very soul of humanity itself. We can't give up, and we won't give up, and that is exactly what Jeff would have wanted. Thank you.
I'm not accustomed to public speaking. I didn't plan to say anything today, but I had Jeff in my mind, in my ear, just urging me, as he always did. And as Kayla just said, I travelled with Jeff up and down the country, and I have to thank him for that, because I wouldn't have been able to do that. I made it today on my own steam to London for the first time without Jeff. He always reserved a seat in his car for me, and if I think back to 3 years ago, if someone said to me that I would be at a protest wielding a placard, walking around the streets of London, or indeed any other city or town up and down England, I would not have believed them. If somebody had said to me that I wouldn't have worn a mask and I would have challenged people, I would have spoken to the police, I would have resisted, I wouldn't have believed them. I was not somebody that could do that, but Jeff showed me how to do that. Courage leads to courage, right? And that's what he did for me.
And I asked him if he'd had a good Christmas, and he said he'd had the most challenging Christmas of his life, and things were very upsetting for him, he said. And I thought to myself, boy, this man is brave. He has the bravery to say what I couldn't admit to myself, that Christmas was highly depressing that year. And I echo Nigel's feelings, that I cry every day, and every day I laugh as well.
It's not the end for Jeff. Every 16th of September, every year, we'll have unity rallies in the name of Jeff. That was the day he died. Jeff Wyatt died on the 16th of September. So, how did I get to know a right-wing businessman from Milton Keynes? Well, the answer is, here, on the 16th of May, this year, I was arrested, and namely he was arrested shortly afterwards, and we know what followed. Millions eventually marched, including you, and the point is, had we not stood up then and you not marched, we wouldn't be here now.
I knew Jeff Wyatt. I think he was a gentle giant, a true gentleman, true English gentleman. And he actually came to my support without me asking him. It was back in 2018, I first noticed Jeff outside the House of Parliament when we were trying to convince the politicians to carry through the Brexit that we voted for. And he would be wandering in his Crusaders outfit, which stood out greatly with his signs. And
Lucy, we met the other week, fantastic. Sasha, and we all see each other on Monday. John O'Looney, a round of applause for John O'Looney. Fantastic, he's done a film.
Myself, I thought about going to the protest on the 16th of May. I didn't go in the end, but I was here 2 weeks later and I was arrested. And when I went to speak to somebody, I phoned up Jeff and I had a little chat with him in the police station on the phone.
Tribute to my friend Jeff, profoundly missed like everyone. I was shocked when I heard what happened. I couldn't believe it. He looked in the picture of health. But I last saw Jeff earlier this year in Southall, a meeting in Southall with some Gurchan and some of the other Sikh guys that are normally with us. Can't see him today. And Jeff was a true warrior. He was just an all-round nice guy who will be just sadly missed, you know. But you can take something positive from every experience.
I'm here with 3 hats on. I've got a very big head, so I've got 3 hats on. UKIP, Hearts of Oak, and myself. And for all of UKIP and for the fight that Jeff and I had within the movement, for all the UKIPers here today, we know what it was all about. Jeff and I have known each other for a long time, and under the good old gypsy saying, we know each other warts and all. So we know exactly where each other came from. Earlier this year, we lost a great sportsman in Australia called Shane Warne. Now, Jeff to me was our Shane Warne. And through the auspices, if you like, of social media, people down under knew about Jeff as well. And on our own channel, we had a Jeff Wyatt complete line for him, and I interviewed him many times. So he was known down under. And the analogy between Jeff, Shane Warne and cricket is that Jeff always played with a very straight bat. You knew exactly where you came from, and thank God. He spoke to people, he didn't speak at them, he spoke to them, and he spoke in words of 1 syllable, so that everybody understood exactly where he came from. I can't say enough that how we'll all miss him. I've known him so many years, and on the very big march when you were in London, you all came up the embankment, and along the embankment I skipped out, being a bit older than some of you. I'd nipped up onto the bridge by Charing Cross, and I looked at the sea of faces all coming towards me, and right in the middle of it was one of Jeff's placards, and underneath it, looking up at me, smiling and waving, was Jeff Wyatt. What a man!
Well, a well-known military strategy is that you choose your battles. And in May 2020, amidst this unprecedented lockdown, about 50 brave souls came here. They were outnumbered by police. To my shame, I stayed at home. I thought it was too soon, too hostile, too risky. But Jeff Wyatt, my good friend, had the courage and commitment, and he was undeterred. And I watched the live stream. I think it was Resistance GB, and I think we should give a round of applause to all the YouTubers, Wills, Cesar, Simon, who recorded our movement, which otherwise was ignored and later vilified by the mainstream media. And so I watched Jeff with his famous placard, Freedom Over Fear. I think somebody's got a copy of it, there it is. Targeted by Metropolitan Police officers. He was arrested and taken away in a van. And of course, many of us have also been arrested, or have been fined, or have been intimidated in some way by the police over the last 2.5 years. And we wear it as a badge of honour.
Yes, it is a bit weird being on this side with all of these cameras. Usually when all of these cameras are pointing at me, you know, it's all the police coming in with the punches and whatnot. I just wanted to speak because I've known Jeff for about 5 years now, I think it is. And I've known him since, you know, I see Eleanor there, we've got Michelle, we've got Richard, we've got Marco, right? We've got a whole bunch of people who've been out here campaigning for our freedom for years. And he was out there outside Parliament, you know, and he was coming down from Milton Keynes and he was fighting for our freedom. And he's been in it for a long while. He was fighting with For Britain, he was fighting outside the carriage gate, and one of the reasons he did this is because he understood his history. And that's one of the things that he really cared about, one of the things he really talked about, and one of the things that he talked with me about. It was the fact that we had, and each of us, every single one of us, is born with rights. These are our rights, they're our natural rights, they're inherent. They come from nature, they don't come from government, they're not given, and they can't be taken away. And right now, we have a government that's trying to erase history. Just like in 1984, just like in Animal Farm, you start with all of the rules on the barnyard wall, and eventually they are erased. We must make sure that our history isn't erased. We must make sure that our rights are not forgotten and they are passed on to the next generation. So one of the important things that I need to say is get your children out of the state schools now! Do not give up the next generation of this country, and it only takes one generation for liberty to die. Do not give up the next generation of this country to people who believe that might makes right. Do not give up the next generation to people who believe that boys can become girls and girls can become boys and who can't even tell you what a woman is. Don't give up the next generation to people who literally teach, and I've heard this from someone who's worked as a teacher, who think that King Lear is about toxic masculinity. This is what they're teaching in the schools. That government is good to obey, not to think, not to react, not to question. It's battery farming, and it's going on right now as we speak. And we can't let it continue. So please, remember you have rights, tell everyone you know that they have rights, and pass that memory on, because that's what Jeff wanted to pass on to all of us. He wanted to pass on to all of us that we, our families, our ancestors have been here long before this government, and they'll be here long after with the rights that we shed our blood for.
Now, one of the iconic moments for me was when I went into the Murderers pub in Norwich with a little camera crew around me. It was a big setup, obviously. And I said, "Can I come in?" They said, "Of course you can." I said, "I'm not vaccinated." And then we had a bit of an argument. Jeff saw that video, and so did lots of other people around the world, and said, "Can I come to Norwich? We need a protest." Piers came as well. So the three of us did a protest at the Murderers pub. The Murderers wanted you to go in with a fact. It is the name of the pub. You couldn't make these things up, could you? Now, you have to have a vaccine certificate, or you had to then have a vaccine certificate to go in to the murderers. I am not an osteopath, but I do osteopathy, and my patient was telling me last week her daughter works in the children's ward. This is going to make me cry too. They have never known so many sick babies.
That's completely true.
They have never known so many sick babies in hospital. They're dying, they're getting illnesses, and why was Jeff out on the streets with his loudspeaker making a tit of himself? Because of those kids. He wanted to save those kids. He wanted to protect our freedom. That's why he came up to Norwich that day, and why me, him and Piers went down to the G7 in Oxford that day and stood there and were mocked and vilified by people and laughed at for being idiots. Why 2 of my children wouldn't speak to me for 2 years because I'm batshit crazy. I'm not batshit crazy, and nor was Jeff. We just knew what was going to happen. Now, we ain't seen nothing yet. People still think it's about COVID and vaccines. That was step 1. We've now got the war in Ukraine. We're likely to have a war between China and Taiwan. We're likely to have central bank digital currencies which are going to track everything you do. A guy was right to pick me up just now here. They're not accepting cash in this bureau. I needed a cup of coffee. I've travelled down from Norwich, so I bought one with my credit card. We shouldn't be doing that. We must stop supporting businesses that don't support cash. We must come off YouTube and Facebook. I had thousands of whatever they are supporters on Facebook. I stopped using Facebook. They were banning me, I banned them. I've banned YouTube. So people are often saying to me, oh, Dolores Cahill, she's not doing anything anymore. That woman's indomitable, she's like Jeff. But she's been banned from YouTube, banned from Facebook, so we can't get the stuff out there. Get on Telegram, because you'll see the stuff on there. Jeff Wyatt is why I'm here. The reason I'm here for Jeff Wyatt, and this is a beautiful story, I was walking through Norwich after the murderers rally, and one of my friends, socialist worker, she was sat at a little stool, and she said, Nigel, I saw you with that guy Jeff Wyatt. I said, yeah. She said, no, she didn't actually say that. No, she said, why did you take a stand with that awful right-wing fascist man? And I said, you can't call Piers Corbyn a right-wing fascist. I don't know if she laughed or not because she's wearing a bloody mask. So this socialist worker was confronting me over being on a platform with Jeff, and I just looked at her and said, he knows more about freedom than you do, and I'm afraid we're not friends anymore. And that's happened with most of my friends. I think Jeff probably... Oh, I've been shot off. I think Jeff probably had the same thing. We lost our friends, and in my case, lost half of my family who will not speak to Mad Uncle Nigel or Mad Daddy. But I'm not going to stop. Kira said it. We're not going to stop. One of the things I've said in all my speeches, during lockdown, when everyone was saying you can't travel, I travelled to Stockholm a couple of times, I travelled to Copenhagen a couple of times, travelled to Berlin, and in every speech I said this: I have some bad news for you. You are going to die. We are all going to die. We get to choose whether we die as a sheep or whether we die as a lion. Jeff Wyatt died a lion. Thank you.
Jeff asked me a couple of times at rallies, one of them was at Canada House and the other one in Brighton, Danny, get on and take the mic, let's see you talk, but I'm going to say a few words today because, yeah, Jeff is here in spirit with us today, and what magnetic energy Jeff Wyatt had and the effect on the movement and the freedom movement, so many good people, and Jeff transcended the divide, and there is divide in this movement, unfortunately, that needs to be repaired. We are one, we are all fighting for the same cause, and we need to transcend these divisions, and that's what Jeff really upheld. You know, he supported all the different groups and all the rallies, and I think we're all very thankful that we got to know Jeff. Some of us, we may have only spoke to him for 5 minutes or once at a rally, but we all felt as if we knew Jeff. You know, he was a very prominent figure, fearless, courageous. He was a general within this movement, a real figurehead, and it does leave a gaping hole, but we will continue in the spirit of Jeff. We all want this to end, and we all want to get up one day and say, thank God that is over, because we'll continue this fight until the very end. And that's what we do from day to day. We get up, whether we just do an hour or we do campaigning all day, and we're out doing outreach, we're all doing something and contributing in our own way. And that's what this is about, that we want this fight to end. It's exhausting, it's tiring, but we cannot give up, and we will not give up. We are here for the long haul, however long this takes. And we will continue the spirit of Jeff Wyatt, a great man, an absolute diamond. And I'm really thankful that I got to know Jeff over the last year. And a very wise man on politics, business and common law in particular. Very knowledgeable man, a great man. So let's give 3 cheers for Jeff Wyatt in tribute. For Jeff Wyatt. Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Thank you.
That's good. I'm not very good at this. The reason I'm standing is because someone just come up to me and said, will you say a few words? And I said, well, And I said, well, Jeff had a lot of respect for Official Voice. As soon as they said that, they just, just filled me with pride, because if that man had respect for Official Voice, then we've done something right. Yeah. Because I had the utmost respect for him, and to hear that being said, that's just put me right up there, to have that from a man like that. Like I said, we did our things, we did the meet brief things, we had our hairy moments. I normally sort of went off and I went inside the buildings, but every time I was inside one of these buildings I looked out the window and Jeff was standing at the front, and it was like, no matter what, no matter where, he was always there. I went to things outside Parliament, there might only be 100 people, Jeff was there. I marched down Oxford Street with 1 million people, Jeff was there. And like I say, I stood inside an ITM building, looked out the window, and Jeff was there. It didn't matter where I turned, Jeff was there. So, yeah, so like I say, to hear that he thought something of us, of our group, then it's just an honour and a pleasure to be here for him. And thank you for just letting me say that, that's all good. Thank you.
No, it's not don't take the vaccine. Is, you know, I'm here for Jeff today. I want to call 2 people. I want to call Kelly and I want to call Nacho, if they want to come and speak with me. Yeah. Alright, so you guys know these people? Yes. You should know these people, because every time I do an interview, I always call these people name, you know. I always call Pierre's name. There's so many of us, you know. But I remember when we sit down in a room and we decided we're going to take it on the street. I got some footage from the 16th of May 2020 with Piers and Jeff Wyatt. I still got those videos when you guys was fighting with the police. And I was sitting over there watching everything, you know. And then I think 2 weeks after, I meet these guys. And they was taking numbers and names. And I basically tell them what I came here for. And I never really have much conversation with Jeff. But Jeff was always with his board, and he's always walking with us. He's not a man of many words. He doesn't really speak much. And trust me, I don't speak much neither. I just do what I needed to do, you know. But yeah, I couldn't miss this, you know. Even though I had some work to do today, I cancelled it. you know, just to come and pay my respect, because we lost a strong brother, but we didn't really lose a strong brother, you know. And the more and more, for me personally, I don't know if you guys remember, but when we was in that room and we was introducing ourselves, there were 7 of us. I remember I told you guys I'm here doing God's work. It was me and a guy named Colin, which is your friend, that was religious, that was more religious than everybody, like believe in God. And I said I'm here because of Revelations 13 verse 16 to 18. Now you must be wondering why I'm saying that, but I'm saying that because hopefully in like 1 year time I'll be baptized, and in my religion as Jehovah's Witness, baptism is a big deal. It's getting closer to God. And for me, I don't want to die before I get baptized. When I get baptized, I'm cleaning myself. I pray that God, you know, let him rest in peace, or let him stay in heaven. You understand? So thank you. I want these guys to say. Can these guys say something more?
Thank you for putting me on the spot like that. I didn't know Jeff very well. I'd met him a couple of times, and I thought it would be better today for people that were close to him to give their stories about him and pay their respects. But nevertheless, Jeff played a very prominent part in building this magnificent movement. He was a very powerful, eloquent man who should be respected. And we stand here in his honor. We stand here to remember the shared journey that we've all been on the last couple of years. We found one another to help build each other, to help empower one another, to help improve humanity. Jeff was a prominent part of that. So we stand here to honor him. I love you, everyone here. We all have love in our hearts for our freedom, for our brothers and sisters across the world. We stand in power. Rest in peace, Jeff. I love you all. We stand here to honor Jeff Wyatt, R.I.P.
I just want to say, first of all, to Lucy and Sasha, that you should be so proud of Jeff, because he saved so many lives, and what he was doing. And I can't remember if it was Nigel that said about, oh, years, I can't remember, but that we're all going to die, but he died a lion, and he did it for us, and he did it for humanity, so just be really proud, and I'm so glad to see you here today. And I will say as well, Sasha, that I was probably the 3rd person, I think, arrested here on the 20th of May, the same day as Jeff. And I remember seeing him get arrested and thinking, that big tall silver fox is getting arrested. He was a good looking man, can't deny it. But he was always really supportive, and he was always unifying, and he did say it how it was. He was probably one of the only people that didn't really want to buy me a drink. Always told me not to drink, and I'm not drinking now, so thanks, Jeff. But yeah, he was unifying when he was here, and I just want to echo what Akira said about the fact that we need to think about it. Look at the people that are here today. Some people you wouldn't see all together, and it's just nice to see everyone come together, so I hope that we can carry on this unity. And Jeff was all for protesting, and I hope the numbers like that Niall said do go back up, because it's so important that we take back the streets and we take back our lives, because we've got so much to fight for, and that's what Jeff was fighting for. So I just want to thank you, Jeff, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Fiona. And Fiona's echoed something which I referenced in my short address earlier, which was the whole idea of unity. We're never going to agree about everything. We know that. Even Jeff and I didn't agree about everything, and we were great pals. But what we can agree on are the most important things that we are fighting against. And I think too often recently that we become distracted by egos, by politics, and by getting into sort of esoteric discussions about terrain theory versus germ theory or whatever. Right now, these things don't matter because we have this massive fight on our hands. So I would certainly echo the sentiment that we should try and come together as much as we possibly can. And as I said in my short speech, I think Jeff would have been incredibly pleased to have so many people here representing different parts of the movement, who perhaps haven't seen eye to eye some of the time, and that is just great because Jeff was a unifying force.
Very much, and thank you for organising, whoever organised today, a chance to pay our respects to Jeff, who was such an incredible man and hugely inspiring. Kate Shimarani asked me to speak on her behalf. She's indisposed today, and I'm very happy to do so. And she spoke frequently with Jeff, as I did, and had a close friendship with him and was hugely inspired by his work and dedication to the movement. I would like to read the armour of God from Ephesians, because this is something that I feel is fitting for today, and I hope you'll bear with me while I read this. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armour of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armour of God, so that when the day of evil comes you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. And with this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. Thank you. Lucy.
I just wanted to thank everybody who was involved in organising today, because I realise it's a lot of time and effort, especially this lady here to the right in the beautiful red coat. There's a lot of time and effort that's been put into this, so Sasha and I are very grateful. I can feel Dad, I can feel him here. He's not gone to me, I can feel him in my heart. Obviously he's my dad, and I'm a great loss, but I don't feel alone. I can feel the loss in all of you people as well. You are his family, he felt at home with you, that's why he spent a lot of time with you. You're like-minded people, and he was very proud of everything that you represented, and of course he was the unifying force that drove it forward. He has always been a very fearless person for as long as I can remember. Obviously he's been in my life all my life. He has never been afraid of saying what he thought, and he always fought for what he believed in. When I was young, I often remembered him falling out with a lot of people, and I remember being in the corner thinking, oh, what do I do? I guess I follow Daddy and walk out the room, because that's what you do. I was always Daddy's #1 fan, and I followed him through the many girlfriends that he had, and thankfully he eventually met Sasha, who is a wonderful lady and has been in our lives for 11 years. But I can't deny that the last couple of years has been plain sailing. Our relationship, even though we have always been very, very close, it has been very difficult. I would say probably 90% of people in my life don't see what's happening. And that was very difficult for me, because I've got my dad, who is obviously fighting the streets for what he feels is right and what you all know is right. And then I've got the rest of my family telling me that he's a nutter and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So there was a lady that actually said a few words earlier, who said that she saw Dad, and he said that he had probably the worst Christmas that he has ever had. And that was because we actually had an argument, and that was probably the only argument that we've ever had in our life. And that argument was because he put his beliefs before me, and I didn't understand why he did that. But what I didn't see was he was actually fighting for my future. So he was doing it for me. And I'm very sad that he's not here to see this, although he did come to support me at a lot of my various achievements and performances and other things that I've done in my life, but I think this is probably would have been the proudest moment if he was here today. But I know he's watching, and I can feel him here. So just as a close, really, please keep fighting for what you believe in and what you feel is right, and don't cease fight when things get tough. Dad was a lion, and he never ceased fight, no matter the challenges, and he will always be remembered as the man that never suffered fools gladly.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I think we all have to very much remember, no matter how devastated and upset we are, it's but nothing to